T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight's going to be a fun one. I'm joined by Aspen Mahan, and we are going to be talking about his recent clutch of Barneck scrub pythons, species that is obviously near and dear to my heart. But not only that, we're going to talk about his recent trip to Australia as well, and some other herping-related topics. But before we get into the episode, as always, USARC. So USARC is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, and to live this lifestyle. Check out usarc.org for all of the information you need to know about the organization. There you can find alerts on new legislation being introduced either at local or national levels. And you can also look into becoming a member of USARC if you are not already a member. As a community, we have strength in numbers, and the more people that are behind the cause, the better. And thank you everyone for being here tonight. If you are here on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you are not already. A new podcast drops here live every single day of the week from some of the best hosts in the game, talking about a wide variety of topics within the reptile industry. We are not only here on YouTube, we are on the audio platforms as well, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. A follow and a 5-star review on any of those platforms would be most appreciated. So yeah, man, thank you guys for being here tonight. This should be a fun one. Get hydrated, get ready to go for this episode. Is going to be a fun one talking about breeding Barneck scrub pythons, one of my personal favorite snakes, one that has definitely shaped my life in times in herpetoculture. But yeah, without any more rambling, let's get Aspen on the show. How's it going, man? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's going good. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know what you're feeling right now. The journey of getting to your, that clutch of baby scrub pythons is definitely a special one, man.
It's definitely a new high. It's something I'm still trying to come down from. Hey
man, stay up there for as long as you can. That's all advice I'll give you there. So for anyone who is watching or listening who isn't familiar with you or your work, kind of give us a little bit of a rundown of your life and times in herpetoculture.
Yeah, I think I probably started out as much as the next guy. Born in Texas, and as you probably know, Texas is a great backyard for catching snakes.
Sure is.
Running around, grabbing whatever you could. Of course, I threw a copperhead somehow in a bucket at the age of 5 and called my mom out, super proud, and she's like, "No, this is not happening." And just kind of spiraled out of control from there as I kind of grew up. I started getting more into the captive keeping side of things. I think when I was 8 years old, I finally convinced my mom that I was ready to go buy a pet snake. And started out with a corn snake. At this time, I was living in Vegas in Nevada.
Okay.
And went to Las Vegas, Exotic Pets Las Vegas. That's what it was. Yeah. I got myself a corn snake and then got another one thinking I was going to breed them. Had no clue what I was doing, threw them in a tank together, and they lived in that same tank for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years before I found out I had 2 females.
Nice.
And, yeah, I was like, oh, I guess I'll never breed anything. I'm no good. I can't breed any snakes. Time started moving on, and I started getting more and more into snakes and kind of jumped into the retic world.
Okay.
Thinking that would be a good idea, and not bashing them, but it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the scene for me. They're very cool snakes, but sure. I just struggled to find a place for them in my house, find a place for them in my scene, my niche,
For sure.
And I think it was in 2016 that I ended up trading what would now have been a very valuable retic. It was a pure pure captive born Kalatoa Superdorf.
Mm.
And I traded that for a pair of scrubs. And the moment I got them in my hands, I was like, all right, this is the one.
Yeah.
These are the snakes I'm working with.
Yeah. What was that first pair?
Oh, so it wasn't actually, I should say it wasn't a true pair. So I got a Barneck and I got a Southern.
Okay.
I just kind of wanted to dip my toes into everything. And unfortunately, I lost that Barneck a few years later. Sorry. Seemingly out of the blue, just up and died, which unfortunately, I think that happens from time to time with wild caught snakes.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I and that Barneck set my path. Like you said, I decided this is what I want.
Yeah. So at this point, what does your collection look like?
So obviously scrubs. I keep
Yeah.
quite a few scrubs. Unfortunately, I just found out the other day that my last remaining female Southern is actually a male Southern. So I have a whole lot of male Southerns that I'm going to have to move and make some females appear. I'm just starting into Halmahera scrubs.
Nice.
I've got a reverse trio of those.
Okay.
I've got my pair of sarongs that produce the babies. I've got a lone Tamika. I've got, what else do I have? Yeah, that should be about it. I'm sure there's a few I'm forgetting about. I've got a couple of odds and ends laying around the house. I've got a bromeliad boa that I'm still wanting to find a mate for.
Those are really neat.
They're very, very cool snakes. Unfortunately, they are very valuable right now, and I'm not willing to pay the money for them. I'm too cheap. So that sits on the side, just waiting. I've got my Nelson's milk snake. Well, it's a Sinaloa Nelson cross, from what I can tell. That's my kid's snake. When kids come into the snake room and they say, "Can I hold that?" I say, "No, that one's going to make you bleed. Hold this." They always want to hold the scrubs, and I tell them, "No, let's not pull those out."
That was funny.
I've got a green tree monitor. I've got, what else do I have in my room? Now I'm having to think about it. I've got some Emerald Swifts just as a little side project. Yeah, a couple odds and ends. Oh, and then some Japanese rat snakes and Chinese king rat snakes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, those Japanese rat snakes have been they've been a species that I've like, you do the thing at a show where like you see these snakes and you pass by them like 20 times and you're like, maybe I'll buy them this time. I've done that at like 10 shows with Japanese rat snakes. I haven't ever pulled the trigger on them, but I think those things are so freaking
I'd recommend it. They're cool. I had a pair years ago and then I sold them. Thought, damn it, why did I do that? And I came across an adult pair about a year ago and I'm like, all right, yeah, I want them back. So I got those guys. So working on them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd really want like an albino and a head albino.
Yeah.
Just like a pair, be able to produce some of both and just
get a little mix.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I like with colubrid, just like a lot of variety. And if I can have a couple of different phenotypes within a pair, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So as far as your primary project is definitely the scrub pythons, as far as the numbers go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely focused in on them. Between the Barnecks and the Halmaheras are my main focus for sure. Yeah.
No, I mean, you don't have to convince me about Halmaheras. I absolutely love those.
I don't think anybody needs convincing on those.
Yeah. I mean, in your experience, how do you compare and contrast them with your Barnecks or your Southerns?
A little bit more shy, I'd say. Slightly smaller.
Yeah.
And outside of that, it's hard to put a finger on it. They're different than most scrubs. That just the way they act, they handle, but they're scrubs,
Sure.
As far as keeping them goes, it kind of goes the same way.
Yeah.
Just making sure they're comfortable and not putting too much hands on.
Yeah. So how far removed and how old were they from the wild? And how old were they when you got them originally?
So the first one I got was from Dan Malary. Okay. And it was pretty young. I would say it was a yearling. She was not very large at all. And
that's awesome.
I was still kind of learning scrubs at this point. I wouldn't say I was new to them, but it took probably 7 or 8 months to get her eating comfortably. She was very shy about it.
Yeah.
And after that, I don't know if I'd say I figured it out, but I haven't had any trouble since. I've gotten 2 others. One was a long-term captive adult. He's a big boy. He's probably every bit of 7.5 foot.
Nice.
And then the other one I got was a fairly recent import, and I haven't had any issues with either of those getting them.
Okay. So with the female that was giving you trouble, what eventually made it work where she started eating?
I have no idea. I would very much keep my hands off of her, keep her in just a fairly, not a small tub, but within that tub, I'd put a lot of sticks and a lot of foliage and leaves and fake plants and just really pack it in.
Sure.
And I would just leave her alone. And I'd drop feed her. That's the only way she'd eat. And I dropped something in, and if she ate it, awesome. And if not, she didn't. Like I said, it took a long time to get her eating comfortably. And when she did, it was just like a light switch. She'd just start taking regularly.
Hey.
So I wish I could tell you what got her going.
Well, that's kind of a thing with Halmaheras. I've found that like just some spontaneous moment, just the switch flips. And it's like, I'm a snake now. Yep. Yeah. I feel like they've been picking up a lot of steam as far as popularity goes recently.
Absolutely, they are.
And you know, for very good reason. And I think especially with some of the ones that have been produced now in captivity, like that are they're gorgeous. They're really high color.
They're incredible.
Yeah, I think that coupled with the reduction in size relative to a Barneck or a Southern, and then also the fact that they're legal everywhere. That
I was going to say that the fact that you can keep them in Florida and other places is a big pro for a lot of people. Yeah,
and that they're not, you know, however expensive Moluccans are these days. I can't even tell you how expensive Moluccans are.
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. So what are some of your long-term goals with the scrub project? Do you want to just have like a few individuals that you're really focused on, or is it something you want to expand to a bigger level?
You know, that's one thing I found has changed as I've gotten further into the scrub world. Originally, it was get one of everything. I want them all. And I think a lot of people start out that way, is give me every single flavor of scrub I can get. And it's so hard to say no to. Like you said, the Moluccans are gorgeous. And then some of those Highlands are incredible. And then you get into the Halmaheras and the different Barneck flavors. And as I started kind of amassing my collection, I realized, okay, I like some things more than others. So obviously I've started to hone into the Barnecks, which when I got my female Barneck that sired this clutch from Dan, I kind of realized she was something different. She's a little more special, and they all are, but she had that unique color and pattern to her. And when I found that male that you got for me, that I got from you, that's kind of the path I decided I wanted to take, is I wanted that look for the Barnecks. As far as Halmaheras go, I just want to make them. As if I can make them, I can start narrowing in on how I want to work with those. Yeah.
So this is your female right here. Just for anyone who's watching.
Yep. That's the female.
And, I mean, one of the nicest dark Barnecks I have ever seen. Yeah. I love how like the bars and then all like the outlines of the scales on the head looks like the ink's like bleeding through the lines. Very few individuals have that look within all of Barnecks. So
the funny story about her, how I acquired her, is trying to remember exactly how it played out. But I went to Pomona, and I was already set on scrubs. I think I already had one or two. I went over to Dan's table and I said, "Hey man, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z." And he goes, "Look, I've got this snake here. She's spoken for, but the dude has not messaged me for the past 3 days. I've been hitting him up. He was supposed to come pick her up. If he doesn't hit me up within the next hour, she's yours." And he didn't. So thank you to whoever did not want that snake.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine missing out on that girl. That would
I couldn't either.
Forever. Shit. And this is the male.
Yeah, yep, that's the male. Correct.
I was like, I should remember the snake. So I mean, I wouldn't probably classify him as quite as nice as her, but that's not a slight to him. That really is saying just how nice she is. But I mean, very complimentary from obviously both how dark he is, but also the base color as well. It's a very similar
shape. Yep. And that's kind of what I was going for, is just match them as close as I can.
Yeah.
I feel like with scrub pythons, we're not far enough to be able to say species, subspecies. So in my mind, I just want to match them up as close as I can to what you might see in the same area.
Right. And, you know, and there's been a lot of controversy, and especially over the last couple of days, even about
Yes, there has.
scrub python crossing. My favorite part about did you see, I don't want to get like into details, but like did you see these posts?
I did see it. Yep.
The part that I don't understand, and maybe this person's just a troll. So the original person who posted it wasn't involved in any of the comments. The comments just exploded. And then they put it in the Somalia group first. That's where it really went off.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, they put it in the other scrub python group. I'm like, did you not see what just happened? Like, do we need to
You're just starting the fire all over again.
What are you doing? Like, stop. So,
yeah, it was quite the controversy, and I kind of see all angles of it. I do understand it. At the end of the day, and I try to take that. I'm probably on the fence side of things. At the end of the day, it's a snake in a box. It won't ever make it back to the wild. So it doesn't matter to the wild. However, in captivity, it could get confused and mixed and muddy up our pure, quote unquote, pure lines should our borders ever close and we can't import new blood. So I totally see both sides. Not that that was what we were going into for the show, but that's my
yeah, I guess we kind of landed here, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I understand when people bring up the examples of, be it green trees or carpet pythons or retics are starting to kind of muddy into those waters a little bit. Sure. But I don't know. I think, I don't feel like I'm anyone to tell someone what to do with their animals or even what animals to like and think are cool.
Right.
That's
why at the end of the day, they're your animals.
Yeah. What I don't like is people being like, they're just, I don't like the crosses and they're ugly. And it's like, all right, well, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
I don't have any crosses, but I'm also not here to tell anyone like, this is what you think. Like, I don't know. But there are sectors of this industry that are like that. They're, kind of passive aggressive. Like if you don't like this thing, you're not part of the in crowd within this group or whatever. And I don't know. To me, that's just a very negative.
Well, I know the individual that sort of fired off the first shot, and I love him to death. I really do, and I totally see his side. I love his. I love his passion. He's probably the most passionate guy I know in the hobby. And I totally see how it could have been misconstrued as another similar view. I think it was just his passion kind of carried him into that.
Well, and I'm not even necessarily referring to just you, Rob. I love you, Rob.
Love you too, Rob.
But on the other group, just some of the people just very dismissive of like just the concept of it to begin with. I don't know. I don't want to get, I guess.
Let's not turn this into a hot button episode, right?
No, but I mean, if you're talking about scrub breeding and, the two of us that are very focused on having this be something that we do for the long run, it's inevitably going to be a conversation because
absolutely.
Any species where there's a number of different localities, species, etc., a species complex, someone's eventually going to be like, what would it look like if I took this and made it with this? And what's that going to be? And, eventually this will be a topic one way or another. So I don't know. I think being on top of it from the start gives us all a better chance to maintain our pure lines going, in the long run, no matter what crossing or whatever occurs, that there's enough people who care enough about the pure side of it, or like you were saying, as pure as possible, as pure as we can realistically make it. I've been very public about how I don't use locality names for my Barnecks. And, I just based on, I haven't seen enough evidence to say that the dark animals are sarong and the light non-pattern ones are maniquari. And, to me, the difference I've seen is mainland type and island type. Those are very distinct. From within those two populations, they look like they're crazy.
And that's the crazy thing is to pull up iNat and start looking at the actual records on iNaturalist, and you'll see things that quote unquote should not be where it is. And it's like, all right, maybe they're more variable than we realized. So
yeah. And then even like the Wamina types, what we call Wamina,
that quote unquote,
that, I mean, it might be the widest ranging scrub phenotype.
Yeah. Oh,
because
absolutely.
They're all the way east into PNG, like as far as that side of the island goes, and almost up to like the the gap of the Bird's Head Peninsula, like across the northern part through Wamena, through Jayapura, and they look a little different throughout the range, but it's all pretty much the same animal.
Yeah.
So to call that a Wamena or a Jayapura is a little bit reductive as to what that animal really is. I mean, it's a northeastern or a northern scrub python, whatever you want to call it. And at the end of the day, it's like these animals are all what we call them doesn't change what they are.
Right.
You're
Until we get
what
further phylogenetics and actual concrete evidence of what's what.
Yeah.
We're just keeping snakes in a box.
Yep. I agree. I think we just, at the end of the day, take your work seriously, take yourself so seriously, be aware of what we're doing here and enjoy it, have fun, do right by the animals. I don't know.
Yep.
That's what I think. So, aside from the Barnecks, Halmaheras, I know you said you have some southern animals. Are there any projects scrub wise that you are like eyeing as what you want to be a part of your group?
I think everybody wants to say Moluccans, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
They're up there, but like you also said, they're out of my range right now. I'm currently at the point of selling off excess animals that I originally had taken in, wanting to turn them into a project. I feel in order for me to succeed, I need to have a very narrow path. I need to be able to focus on, 2 sets of animals. It's too hard when you've got 13 snakes and they're all doing different things. And not saying that I won't ever have 13 different scrubs on different levels of cages, but I really just need that narrow path of these 2 species, these 4 cages, and let's get these going and I'll work out from there.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Yeah, I know how that goes. Well, cool. I guess we'll kind of compartmentalize and start talking about some herping stuff later on. But let's get into the breeding process. So I guess, where did it start? When did you start formulating, I want to do this, here's how I'm going to do it, my female will be ready by then? Like, what was the process of even getting everything set up in the first place?
So I think it was a course of over probably 2 or 3 years. Originally, I did not have a male for that Barneck. Mm-hmm. So I did happen to have a pair of Halmahera scrubs. So I think the first year I tried to pair them, they were way too young, way too small.
Okay. Like how big were they?
She was probably 5 foot, which I know isn't impossible for them to breed at. I would feel she didn't have the body mass.
Sure.
So, and I talked to a lot of, thanks to everybody that's kind of helped me along. I'm very lucky to have a lot of friends that know much more than I do. And I tend to reach out to them when I'm like, hey, this isn't working. What do I do?
Yeah.
And luckily Lisa is a very good friend. And she recommended pound the female with feed. So that second year I pounded them with feed and I paired up my Halmaheras and I got some breeding action. I saw them cuddling.
Okay.
But that was about it. I thought, I'm missing another piece to this puzzle. Go ahead.
So before we go too much further, so the pounding her with feed, what time of year was that? And then what was the specifics of that increased feeding?
Good point. So I totally skipped over all that. So I tend to base my room off of natural cycles. So I have a west-facing window, so I get a natural photo cycle.
Okay.
To begin with. And the wind, it starts to cool down where I live. I'm in southern Utah. It starts to cool down right around that September, October. So I started feeding heavy, probably May. I started in May, pushed May, June, July, and into August, feeding multiple prey items between rats and chicks. I'd swap them out.
Just to help. Smaller, more frequent, or
not necessarily smaller, just more frequently. Every week to it just depended. I'm a very not schedule based guy. I just kind of look at them and go, you look hungry. Here's a food. Here's a meal. So I would just increase that. So let's say I would feed normally every 2 weeks. I'd bump it to every week, and then I'd give them a week's break, and then I'd feed them every 4 days for a week. And then I'd go back to 2 weeks. I'd try to cycle it.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And then I do that May through probably August.
Okay.
And I started introducing them. At first I set Halloween as my introductory date. So I'd introduce them on Halloween. So I'd have that baseline. and I didn't really see anything out of them that year. I let the temperatures drop through Halloween. I turned the heat off at night, and my room during the coldest of the winter would get to mid to high 60s, probably 66, 68 at the coldest.
Okay.
Then I turn the heat back on in the day, and I run ambient heat, by the way. I should say, for the most part, I let my room heat up to anywhere from 88 to 89, depending on the season.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, with an oil-filled heater to keep it from getting too cold. And then in the summertime, I run no heat, and I just let the outside temperature affect my room. I still let the AC creep in, but if it gets too cold, obviously I introduce more AC. But I give them that natural fluctuation to kind of create that pattern.
Sure.
So that second year, same thing. I didn't see anything. And unfortunately, on the third year, the same year I got that Barneck from you, I want to say it's probably my fault. I lost my big female Halmahera. I was, again, setting them up to prep them for feed. I fed her a large rat. And then I think I gave her 2 or 3 days. It was way too soon. And I fed her, I think I had another snake that wouldn't eat. And I thought, she'll handle it. I fed it to her. A day later, she regurged that rat that she most recently ate. And then the next day she was dead. So let that be a warning to anybody trying to bump up your females for feed. Don't overdo it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I took away from it, at least. So unfortunately, I lost that female. But that's where we get into the Barneck. So what I did for them differently, at this point, I'd kind of learned the first year, I'm going to provide them direct heat during the day. So I put in a heat panel, RHP, directly above to give her a basking spot. And I set that up for an 88-degree hot spot. And it would turn on about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and it would turn off, I think, about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
I want to say. Just when the sun would normally go down. And then I would let my room do the normal temperature cycle like I described before. In the cold of the night, in the wintertime, it'd get 67 degrees in there. But during the day, she'd always be on that hot spot. So I think that definitely helped. And then I started doing an interior cage photo cycle as well. I installed some T5 LEDs just in the cage, which actually helped increase the ambient temperature in the cage to about 80-ish during the day. Yeah. Okay. Directly under the light. And they still have enough room to get away if they want to cool down to those mid 70s in the summer.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, that's kind of the main cycle leading up to introductions.
Okay. So then introduction wise, were you just going off of, this is the date that I'm going to do it, I'm preparing it, or was there a change in behavior that you saw?
No. Funny enough, so I got that mail from you. I put him through quarantine, did the normal procedures, got him in his own cage. And I think it was the very end of August. I just thought, you know what? I'm going to throw them in together early and see what happens. I'm at this point, it's year 3 trying for scrubs. I've done what I can, throw them in the cage and just see what happens. And every once in a while, I'll introduce a snake to another snake just to see, like you said, behavior. Are they interested? And they immediately went to the opposite sides of the cage. He went to one side, she went to the other, and they kind of left each other alone. And I think I just kind of shrugged and said, screw it. We'll just kind of leave them together. I was going to introduce them anyways in another month. We'll see what happens. And just left them together after that. That was about it. They stayed apart for a long time. And every once in a while, I'd see them kind of interacting. They'd crawl across each other, but I never saw much interest in the first probably 2 months they were together. Okay. Once probably September, October rolled around, they started cuddling. Okay. I'd see them cuddling. I'd see him following her around, but I never once saw lock. Then that could be with me having a busy job and always out herping, like you previously mentioned. And I'm very hands off. I leave my snakes alone. I just let them do their own thing for the most part, but I never saw a lock.
I've had that happen to me too. I've had everything between no lock witnessed to 13, 14 locks witnessed. And frankly, the one without any locks had a better end result. So or that didn't see any locks. But yeah, they can definitely be sneaky breeders for sure.
Yeah.
You know, especially in like a cage with a little bit more stuff in it, kind of like how you do your enclosures.
Yeah, I definitely try to give them a lot of room to hide. I try
Yeah.
to fill it up with a lot of sticks, a lot of leaves, fake plants, and give them the option. If they want to bask out on top of the logs, they're more than welcome to. If they want to hide in the corner, I don't want them to feel confined or like they're always threatened when I walk into the room.
Yeah, for sure. So throughout the process where you had them paired up, how was your feeding schedule for them?
So I fed up until the temperatures, like I said, started getting cold due to the natural outside. You know, Utah winters still get pretty cold even in southern Utah. So once that room started dipping into the 70s, I decided, okay, that's enough food. You're done. The female would still get meals. I would still feed her because she had her hot spot, but I left the male to not feed. I wanted him a little bit hungrier. I think every once in a while I'd throw him a meal and I'd see him sit on the hot spot and digest. But for the most part, I would just offer the female food.
Okay.
As long as the heat was on, you know.
Sure. And then did her appetite change at all throughout the process? Up until refusing food? Like did she start one where she wasn't
I'm
looking?
trying to remember exactly when she started refusing food. It was, I wish I had the numbers written down, the dates written down. I should have kept track of it more. She definitely started refusing food after she ovulated. I don't know when exactly. And at that point, I was still fooling myself going, nah, she's just not hungry. She just doesn't want it. But yeah, she did start refusing food towards the end of it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I feel like there's such a work in progress still with figuring out exactly what makes these snakes tick. So it's, any data point is really interesting. This is an interesting case because she's already a very dark snake as it is. When did you notice her starting to get even darker?
I would say it was either the point around her building follicles or ovulating. I can't say I truly witnessed the ovulation. I never saw the incredible football, you know, the swallowing a basketball look.
Yeah, they don't really get that quite as often as other, like a ball python or something like that.
No, and I've seen some crazy pictures of them swelling, but she never got anything too huge. But slowly, she was starting to darken and she was starting to swell. And I'd send pictures going, "Hey, am I crazy? Is she getting bigger?" Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I see scale separation. She's getting bigger." And I'm like, "Nah, nah, that's nothing. She ate like 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't think there's anything going on." But she absolutely did darken up. It's such a slow process. I want to say it's, unless you're right on top of it, documenting every day, which I probably should. Obviously, I don't know what my own snakes did. But unless you're documenting every day, you feel like you miss it. You're not, you don't catch it slowly darkening until one day you walk in and you're like, holy shit, she's black. You know, she's gone. She's dark.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. I feel that too, where like all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, something's not the same with you. What happened? It's always a very good feeling seeing that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of the reason I didn't take as many notes and write down dates and all that is I'd already written it off as, she's not going to go. I don't know what I'm doing. She's just doing scrub things.
Yeah. So the male, when you were feeding, did you just like separate him out for a few days, put him back in?
Yeah, I'd just pull him. I'd put him in a tote and I'd throw him a rat or a chick and let him eat. And then I'd put him back together. I'd usually tap her, move her head, make sure she wasn't going to, food response him. Yeah. And luckily I never had that issue, and they'd go right back in together and not have any issues.
Okay. So, yeah. And when he was in that tub separated, did you see like him kind of cruising around, try to like pushing at the lid and stuff like that, or was he kind of chilling?
I feed in a dark tote, like a large enclosed dark tote. It's not a clear tub. So I honestly have no idea what he was doing in there.
Got it.
I just open the lid and go, "You're done," and throw him back in.
Okay, so just for that brief period of actual feeding.
Yeah, correct. Right, yeah, just while they fed. Once everybody had eaten, he went right back in.
Okay, great. Yeah. Understand now. Cool. Yeah, That's interesting because myself, when I talk to Rob on here, he's said it a lot, especially with his big Highland male, that like he knows when his girls are starting to develop because he'll see some of his males just going crazy all over the enclosure. But I guess if the male's already with the female, then you probably don't even have that behavior because he's got her right there anyway. So
right, yeah, that would make sense. And the males definitely are more active to begin with, whether it's just normal day-to-day in cage. I notice
100%.
my males out way more often.
100%.
The females tend to kind of lurk in the corners.
Yeah.
But I think even in the cage, she would stretch out and bask, and he would move from spot to spot.
Okay.
Assumingly, whether she wanted him there or not, I'd see him sometimes on the far end of the cage, and then sometimes he'd be right on top of her. And further along, when she was in her nest box, almost all the time, he would be right on top next to that nest box. Whether you call that mate guarding, I don't know.
Yeah, so. could very well be. Interesting. Okay, so then what was your like nesting setup for her like in the enclosure? And what was like the proximity of that to the heat source?
Yeah, so I tried to half and half it. I took a smaller black tote with a thick lid and filled it with shredded sphagnum moss that you get from, the big 3-quart bags from like Home Depot.
Okay.
And I filled that at least probably 2 inches worth. And then I took some nice long leaf sphagnum moss on top of that, made it real humid inside. And I tried to put it halfway underneath the heat source, the heat panel, so that she could get right on top and bask under that heat, or she could go inside the nest box and still have that heat option. Yeah. And in my mind, I tried to keep it at 88.1 because I feel like that's a totally reasonable basking temperature for her. Sure. But also I wanted that to feel as close to optimal as possible for a nest site.
Yeah.
Is what I chose.
For sure. And then, so which side of the box did she lay on? Did she lay on the warm side or the cooler side?
It's right in the center, basically. It wasn't a huge box, so she didn't have a whole lot of room to move in between. But she laid right there inside the box. Just right in the center.
Very cool. So then when she was gravid, do you see any sort of changing in her behavior patterns before, in between her pre-lay shed?
Very defensive. Very defensive. She's already a fairly defensive snake. But she definitely perked up more so.
Got it.
She'd be on guard as soon as you came in. She'd get twitchy and huffy.
Okay, cool. And then, so you said she was already basking a decent amount during did she continue to that basking behavior?
She did for the most part. Once it got down to probably the last couple of weeks, she did a lot of it. She almost never left the nest box. I think she was probably still enjoying the heat, still utilizing it, but she very rarely left that nest box. Okay. That was kind of the point where it was like, okay, it's happening. It's got to be, right?
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm kind of trying in my own, experiments and whatnot to figure out exactly what like they should be doing. Mm-hmm. One of the signs that I've been seeing with my females, at least, that they're going to lay their clutch is that they don't come out that day. Okay. So like every day, for the most part, while they're gravid, they'll be in the nest box at night. It'll be morning time. The panel will come on. A couple hours later, they kind of creep their way up there, and they're up there for a majority of the rest of the day. At some point, they're like, all right, I'm done. They go back into the box. And then like the day before they lay, they're just going to stay in the box. Or like bask for a very brief period of time. So it's interesting that your female decided to go in the box like almost entirely for the last couple of weeks. So not sure what to make of that, but it's definitely interesting.
I could be just because, like I said, I leave for work in the morning at 5 a.m. and I get home usually past 6 in the evening. So, so she may have been out. I have no clue. Sure. Very rarely am I in my snake room during midday. So she could have gone out for a little stroll, and I'm sure she was going out and getting drinks. But every time I saw her, she was in that box.
Okay. Cool. So then once she laid, so you took the eggs out, artificially incubated them. What was your nest box setup, light incubation, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I had my incubator pretty, pre-game, ready to go. I chose to set it at 87.5. Okay. I was kind of leaning between 86 degrees and cooking them low and slow, or going the standard Python 88 tried and true. I thought, I'll just split it down the middle. We'll just do that. I attribute this to, I believe it's Keith McPeak I got this method from, and he's passed it down through a buddy who I took it from. So in my lay box, or not my lay box, but my incubation box, I take a soldering iron and I poke a few holes on either side of the box. And then I cover them up with clear packing tape.
Okay.
Because you want to kind of hold in that humidity. They don't really breathe and off gas as they go in the beginning phase. But as they age, you want them to be able to breathe more. You want to clear out some of that condensation. You peel that tape off and they have a lot more airflow.
Yeah.
So I had that box, set up, tape on it. I did perlite and water, mixed it to whatever felt good. I didn't do the 2 cups to 2 cups or whatever. I just kind of mixed it and then put light diffuser on top of that. And then I also had sphagnum moss in the box. I had previously had a clutch of Chinese king rats that were incubating in that box, but I'd missed them for a day or two and they'd started to shrivel in. So I threw a bunch of sphagnum moss in the box. And at that point I thought, why not just leave it? It'll help with humidity and they'll be fine. So I just left that in the box.
Okay, cool. Very nice. Okay. Yeah, it's actually almost the identical step to how I did my first ever scrub python eggs.
Okay.
I've tried a bunch of different methods and I still haven't landed on one that I'm like, this is the one I'm sticking with. So
what else have you tried? What have you found that's worked to you? What do you like? What have you not liked?
I would say the one that I have had the most trouble with, it would be suspended over water.
Okay.
Where I just find that sometimes the eggs are just like, they look up, they look all right, and then they're really like indented underneath.
Yeah.
But I've done directly in vermiculite, just like squeeze test
like
vermiculite.
Half buried almost.
Yeah, even like a quarter or a third. And the eggs ended up hatching, but they absorbed so much moisture that they were like, the underneath were like double the size that they were supposed to be.
Oh man.
I'm just like, oh crap. So then like, put a lot of dry bedding in there and ended up working out. I'm like, all right, I'm not doing that again. I've liked the perlite, but I found that it, in some instances, in some boxes, it dried out too quickly compared to vermiculite. And then I've done suspended over water, which I don't like for that reason I just mentioned, and also just like either move it around, just sloshes way too much, get eggs wet.
Yeah, too much water.
So then I also have done the water crystals.
Okay.
And then then the same thing happened with the denting underneath. So I didn't love that. And actually had one clutch where I think an egg went bad because there was too much pressure from eggs that were on top of it and then having that hard surface below it. I also had the same thing happen with some pine snake eggs doing suspended as well, where there was like kind of a stack with how the female laid that I just left it as is. And actually had an egg pop in a pine snake clutch, which was kind of insane. But then this year, what I've been doing with everything, and I've had some run-ins where like with some colubrid eggs, the bedding ended up just being too damp. Either that or the eggs were just no good to begin with. But 50-50 vermiculite, perlite, just kind of, damp, squeeze out all the excess moisture, and then dry sphagnum moss on top of that, and then eggs in that. So that's what I'm sticking with right now.
One thing I should say I add to my incubator is I take pans of water or deli cups of water and then slide them in on top of the heat tape at the bottom to add extra ambient humidity inside of that incubator. And that seems to really boost the humidity inside of there.
I've always done the same thing as well for really everything.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah. I've seen people like keep the main chamber dry and keep the egg boxes really humid. I'm like, it seems like you're really fighting against what, like, I don't know, like you're fighting to maintain that little microclimate within that box when like you can just keep the entire thing humid and not.
Yeah, and that's how I feel as well. If I can keep the entire incubator humid, I don't have to worry about the little box. And that's kind of the added bonus of having those air holes is you allow more humidity into that box. Right.
Yeah. So with that setup, I should add that, I think depending on which incubator I have it in, I have like 4 or 6 air holes in each
Okay.
box,
Okay.
and then like no condensation at all. The first time I tried that method was with my tiger rats that I got near the end of last year, and I had my basically like a 6-quart tub of water in like the little hot box, put the eggs in there, and I did not open the incubator until they hatched.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. There was no condensation on the box at all. My little sensor read right temp and humidity the whole time, and because I didn't open it, it took up much longer for that water to evaporate. And yeah, for the whole 70 days, I didn't open the incubator one time. So I'm like, wow, this is the best incubation I've ever had. I'm gonna try this with everything. So not perfect, but I guess
I unfortunately opened the incubator a lot, more than anything, just to look at the eggs. Just like, holy shit, they're real, you know?
Well, no, if I didn't have windows on my incubators, I would be screwing up all the internal dynamics the entire way through. So I
think they're not as fragile as we think. I would imagine the female in the wild is opening her coils, loosening, letting those eggs air out, because they do off gas, they do breathe.
Yeah.
I would often pull my eggs out and just I call it burping. I'd burp my eggs, let them breathe. I'd kind of let some of those gases come out of the container, be it for 30 seconds or a minute, and let them go. Now, I did have one incident and I'm sure we'll talk about Australia in a bit, but I was in Australia. Luckily, I happened to have service. We were at a resort just getting ready to leave and go back out into the desert, and I got a phone call from the buddy that was watching my snakes. And he's not super familiar with all my equipment. He goes, "Hey, there's a beeping coming from over here by your incubator." I go, "What are you talking about?" And I go, "Show me on video real quick." And he video calls me, and it was my herp stat beeping because the probe had failed. And I'm like, "You need to fix this right now. Let me walk you through it." I had a spare probe. So I'm like, okay, first off, grab that little yellow gun, shine the laser, tell me what it reads. And it was like 72 or 73. So it had dropped in temperature, but it was still a safe temperature.
I'd be losing my mind.
I was a little, there was poo. I had pooed. So I told him, "Hey, you're going to have to and I walked him through it, pull the probe, put the new probe in. We're good to go." And it started reading fine. Temperature started going up. So we were okay. But I was really worried. And that was probably midway through the incubation. So yeah, it was a small hiccup.
Damn. Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Everything for the most part turned out okay.
Yeah, that's good. Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be a full first experience if you didn't have something like that pop up in the middle of it.
No kidding. Middle of the desert, nowhere, no way to fix it.
Jeez, that's terrible. Well, luckily it worked out. So, what was the end result? What day did they hatch out, and what all? I guess we didn't say how many eggs she laid. So
no. So okay, So she laid 9 eggs total. One was obviously a dud, much smaller, yellow, discolored. Clearly a dud. So I discarded that one. 8 good eggs, right?
Okay.
Put them in there. At the end result, all 8 hatched. Every single one of them picked while I was again gone in Florida. The same buddy sending me pictures. "Hey, there's heads coming out of these eggs." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Son of a bitch." So all 8 of them did pip and stick their heads out. Okay. By the time I got home, all but 2 had left their egg. And they hatched on day 78.
Wow. Okay.
Day 78, they hatched. And I've had it all marked on my calendar. I'm like, I'm going to be gone in Florida. Here's day 75. Here's day 80. Here's day 85, 90. And of course they hatched the day after I left.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. He's sending me pictures. "Hey, there's a cut in the egg." I'm like, "Oh, no. Why am I here? I'm missing their birth."
Oh, man.
So getting away from myself here. All 8 hatched. I got home, 2 were still in the egg. I let them ride overnight. One of them left the egg. The last one was still in the egg. And at this point, it had been probably 3 days since they all pipped. So I coaxed them out of the egg. And unfortunately, this one had some pretty severe defects. I don't think I can attribute it to incubation or even the temperature change, because everybody else hatched out really healthy. Yeah. But he had like a 90-degree kink in his spine, probably halfway down his body. And then his belly had fused together. So it was completely just like it was glued together, and he'd started struggling, and it was already ripping skin open. Things were starting to come out, and I unfortunately had a youth, and I hated seeing that. I hated having to put down one of my first freaking scrub pythons. But
I know.
Yeah, he wasn't going to make it, unfortunately.
No, definitely not.
So.
Lisa asks, didn't she lay them on Valentine's Day?
She did, actually. I totally forgot that. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for that. She did. It was a Valentine's Day gift. I totally forgot about that.
How nice of her. That's awesome. So, okay, yeah, I mean, that definitely does suck, but 7 babies is still 7 babies. So
still 7 babies, yeah. And I feel like that's a pretty decent size clutch for her, for a first clutch.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, can't be angry with that whatsoever.
No, absolutely not.
From the jump, how are they looking? Can you see pattern on any of them yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of surprised. I haven't ever hatched scrubs before, but you can see faint pattern on them that I would say probably closely resembles the male.
Okay. That's let's see. It's a little bit far out.
They're all phone pictures. They're awful. I might have one in hand. Maybe not.
That one.
There you go. That was the night I got home.
Yeah.
I also forgot. I said I put a water bowl in the dish or in the incubator, expecting them possibly to hatch. So I wanted them to have water should they hatch, and I wasn't home.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I did do that as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, you can kind of see a little bit of pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. Their egg skin is like the shiniest.
It is
in the entire world. It's amazing. You could like have a bright ass flashlight on them and be like, what the hell is under there?
It's extremely shiny.
Yeah. The first shed is you have no idea what you're getting. And then that first shed, you're like, there's my snake. I'm getting an idea of what's going on now.
Yeah, we'll see what I get when they start shedding.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we talked about before, that can take a while sometimes. It's very strange. Yeah. Like they're not typical pythons where, give them a couple of weeks, they have their first shed. And it's not like the Curtis complex where they take months and months, no matter what to shed. It's variable as hell. It's like whenever they feel like it, typically within a few months, but sometimes even longer than that. So yeah, they'll make you suffer a little bit waiting on
hopefully
their shed.
Sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it often, not all the time, but most of the time, it correlates with when they get onto food. Like get a few meals into them, it'll kick that shed cycle in. But shoot, I think I've had a baby take 10 or 12 meals before they had their first shed.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's kind of insane. But yeah, no, they're fun, but they'll make you sweat a little bit. So yeah, I mean, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but now that you have these babies, what are your plans as far as what you're going to do now that you have these in your hands?
Hold back everything. Definitely going to sit on them for quite a while.
Yeah. For sure.
A couple are lined up to be traded out with new blood, you included. I know you just had a clutch as well. So want to get a couple new snakes in and kind of expand that project. But for the most part, I want to sit on them and just see what they turn into and maybe hang back onto 1 or 2 of them. Unfortunately, space is the limiting factor here.
Sure.
I can hang on to them at least for a year and then start making decisions on who gets to go and who doesn't, who sticks around. So.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to go, especially if you are able to hold on to them for a little while. I mean, they're kind of like an in-between of, like they're not quite as bad as like a green tree python, but they're not, like a species where you can tell pretty much right away out of the egg. It takes a little bit of patience, especially if you're looking to hold stuff back. Like if anyone were to produce a clutch of scrubs and be like, I'm selling them all, it's like, well, then it doesn't really matter which ones you keep. But if you want to keep the best of the best, you need to be patient, especially with their color development. Like I have a male right now in particular that I produced in 2022 that was some like my favorite clutch I had up until that point. And he had the most like regular pattern of any of them. And it was male heavy. He's a male. I'm like, oh, I might sell this one. He's nice, but he's not as nice as some of these other guys. And I held on to him. He is the most gold Barneck I have. And I would have had no idea if I hadn't like held on to him. So that was for me a lesson of like, I need to be patient with these things, because if I had sold that snake, I'd be sick seeing pictures of it in someone else's
My
collection.
biggest fear is letting go of one of those snakes going, I don't think this is as nice. Like you said, I don't know, he's not that nice. And then seeing him 2 or 3 years later and just kicking myself going, oh, I just let go the one and only that looks like that. Yeah.
No, I haven't. I've definitely, let go of some very nice scrub pythons, but I haven't quite had that experience yet of like, oh, that's what I sold.
No.
What have I done? So every time I was like, wow, that snake is nice, but I knew that's what it would look like. So,
Lisa's lucky. They're all black snakes. The black snakes with a white lip. You don't have to worry about which ones you're letting it go.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, cool. So we're about at that halfway point of the show. We're definitely going to get into some heavy herp discussions, but before that, we have our quick commercial break we are going to head to. Stick tight, everybody. We'll be back here in just a minute.
One of the biggest growths we have in the reptile industry today are the rare species of reptiles that aren't worked with. That's right. That's why I went ahead and partnered up again with Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. Brian works with species such as kahua geckos, gargoyle geckos, all species of tree monitors. He works with abronia and many other cool species geckos that you can check out all on his website. Head over to sundownreptiles.com, see what he has available. Brian's one of the best doing it in the reptile industry today. He's been on the show multiple times, so make sure you check out all of Brian Susan's episodes on Trap Talk Reptile Network. But more importantly, for the highest quality of captive bred reptiles, make sure you head over to sundownreptiles.com and make sure you give him a follow on Instagram. Thank you again, Brian Susan over at Sundown Reptiles. One of the things I love about being a part of the reptile industry is all the learning, okay? Learning can be fun, and I can prove that to you. Thank you so much to today's sponsor, Gary Scavino over at gs.reptiles. I highly recommend you head over to his YouTube channel, follow all this man's content when it comes to learning about rare species of snakes you could be keeping in the hobby, and also just finding out how easy a lot of these rare species of snakes are to keep in general. So thank you so much, Gary Scavino of GS Reptiles. Again, head over to his YouTube channel. Also head over to his Instagram to be on top of all of his current work and be ready for a big year over at GS Reptiles. Thank you so much, Gary, for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Chee!
All right, everybody, we are back. So, second part of the conversation, herping. Topic that I always love to bring up on the show when I can, when I have a guest on who is a big herper, because I feel like it's so important to herpetoculture, to experience these animals in the wild. So obviously at the beginning you mentioned, being a kid in Texas, finding snakes and whatnot. When did herping become a really prominent part of your life?
Surprisingly, not that long ago. I think it was probably 2016. I really started herping and targeting specific species and trying to figure out how to do it. Before it was always incidental. Oh, we're out on a camping trip and I caught a gopher snake, or oh, I'm driving my four-wheeler and there's a rattlesnake in the road. But until 2016, I hadn't really started looking for stuff. Okay.
And then what was there a moment of like, this, I need to be doing more of this? Was like, what was the light switch that?
Yeah. So my good buddy Chris, in fact, the reason I moved down to Southern Utah, at the time I'd been rooming with him, and we decided, we need to get out more. Like we like snakes, we keep snakes. Yeah. Let's go find them. And we kind of made a plan. Hey, we're going to go here on this trail and we're going to look for Great Basin rattlesnakes. And we kind of mapped out the spot. We did our research and we went 5 minutes down the trail, and there's this big, gorgeous, beautiful lutosis in the road or in the street. It's the one I just recently shared, bone white, dark black color. Still the prettiest one I've ever seen, and to this day, beautiful snake. And at that point, we're like, holy shit, we're doing it. We're herping. We picked a spot, we picked a target, and here it is. We should do this more often. And it kind of it branched out from there.
Wow. Yeah, that's it's about as good as a first herping experience could potentially go for anybody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. So were rattlesnakes something that you were focused on initially, or is that just a species that was local to you? That you like, why the great rattlesnake?
I love venomous snakes. I'm extremely jealous of what you're working with, but love venomous snakes, love rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
We're extremely lucky in the United States to have them. A lot of people overseas would kill to see what we have here.
Absolutely.
So that was obviously a big start. And being in southern Utah, we have quite a few species of rattlesnakes available.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of places you might only find one or two. I think we're not far off from Arizona in numbers. We're way off from Arizona, but we have quite a few options.
Sure.
But just between rattlesnakes and Gila monsters and a lot of different obscure species in southern Utah, the list is pretty impressive as far as stuff you can target and time spent. Look, I've been looking since 2016, and there's still stuff I haven't crossed off in my county. So,
yeah. Well, and on the Gila monsters, you have potentially what might be considered the nicest looking Gila monsters of
subjectively, but yeah, absolutely. I am very I'm biased, but I think ours are pretty incredible.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So once you started getting really into herping, how soon before you're like, all right, I got to take this on the road. I got to go places with this exact goal in mind, not just, I mean, Utah, like here in West Texas, hot spots for herping. You don't need to go very far to find some really good herping, but there is a lot of great herping all over the world. So when was that like, all right, this is something I really need to do?
So Arizona kind of opened my eyes. A good buddy wanted to get down there. He'd made a trip before, and our first trip absolutely sucked. We got snowed out of one spot, a very well-known spot for montanes, and we got one snake that entire trip, and it was on the last night. There was a long nose, and I was like, all right, we have to go back. Like, I'm not going to Arizona and not getting Atrox, and I'm not, there's so many things I missed. And on our second trip to Arizona, then in the end of July of that same year, we ended with 67 species. We got all 3 montanes within 24 hours, including 3 price-eye. It was just a mind-blowing experience. And it was like, this is a lot of fun. Camping with friends in the middle of nowhere, out looking for snakes, just having fun. And so that kind of kicked off my my bug for traveling. And it's gone from then. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona, I've only herped the Chiricahuas for Arizona, but man, I mean, talk about a place that can really get that bug,
absolutely
deep inside you. There's all the different ecosystems you can experience out there, all the species. It's like
once you get into those Sky Islands, it's a different world, man.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's absolutely insane. So was the Australia trip your first international herping trip?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a dream of most, if not all, reptile keepers to fulfill that prophecy. So you went earlier this year, correct?
Yep. Went in February.
So the one thing that I feel like I definitely can speak for myself, and probably a lot of people find daunting, is just even planning a trip like that in the first place. So what was that like, figuring out ahead of time all the logistics that would go into actually making this trip happen and going where you would actually need to?
I cheated. I was very fortunate. I'm good friends with Justin Julander. Cross-platforming here. But Justin's a very wonderful man that
for sure.
I can't think of many people that know as much as he does about Australia or has done as many trips as he has.
You probably need to go to Australia to find that person.
More than likely. I can think of 1 or 2 other people that I personally know of that have, on the same platform of knowledge as he does.
For sure.
So it was his 50th birthday bash. He created a very large group with so many people that were invited. And I don't want to say luckily, but luckily most of them dropped out pretty quickly. There was only a few of us hardcores that went, we want in. There's a couple of people that joined him, and he already made this trip once in 2010. So he kind of knew the area. He knew people.
Okay.
We were very fortunate to have Dale, a local, who was actually, he grew up in Alice Springs area. He joined us, so he kind of knew some hot spots.
Okay.
And we kind of hashed it out from there. But as far as doing the research goes, you're doing a lot of online looking up. iNaturalist comes into play, obviously.
Sure.
It's a super useful tool for habitat more than anything. Yeah, you can find hotspots, but utilizing iNaturalist gives you a good hotspot for areas, or a good place to start, I should say.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it because I do a lot of planning on my own trips, but I let Justin do all the heavy lifting on that one.
Hey, I mean, shoot, when I get a chance to go to Australia, I'd love to have a similar situation where I'm like, I'm trusting in someone who I, know knows is better than me, and I can be along for the ride. And
doing a normal trip in your field of comfort is fine, but when you go, 24 hours flying distance away in a land you've never herped before with people you don't know, there's so many factors that come into play, and we were pretty fortunate to have people that knew what they were doing.
That's awesome. Yeah. So kind of walk us all through that trip a little bit. What were the main target species that you guys were going for? And then, what were like the first couple of days like?
Yeah, so it was a 14-day trip. We lost 2 days on either end in travel time, which kind of sucks, unfortunately. But, what are you going to do? It's Australia.
Part of the game. Yeah.
So it was 12 days in country. So when we finally landed, we flew in through Sydney, and we're on the ground in Sydney for about 2 hours before we picked right back up and flew out to Alice Springs. Yeah. And we pretty much hit the ground running. It was a lot of adjusting to similar but very different habitat and ecosystem. Okay. I'm used to the southwestern desert, being in southern Utah. I'm used to the red sand dunes, the red rocks, desert animals, desert snakes, but when you get there, it's just a different feel, very different feel. So we started at a desert museum, like a desert gardens out there. It had kind of a very nice little showroom of animals. You'd go through and they'd have displays of all their natural species in that area. And we kind of utilize that as a search image. You kind of don't know what you're looking for until you see it. So to see a thorny desert or a thorny devil sitting in the sand with grass next to him in a cage gives you a pretty good idea. That's what I want to look for when I'm in habitat. Sure. Well, that was a really good introduction into what species I wanted to see and how it was going to look like in the wild. Okay. As far as targets go, we had quite a few main targets. One of the biggest targets was Brettle's pythons. And we spent quite a bit of time in habitat for them. Thorny devils as well, Woma pythons, and Amia. What's Nephrurus Amia? What's the common name of those guys? Giant knobtail.
That's what came to my mind.
I think giant knobtail. Nephrurus Amia.
The most alien looking knobtail.
They're wild. They're crazy. So those were kind of the big targets, and obviously everything in between. For me, everything was new. I was losing my mind over plants, rocks, birds. I'm kind of a dirty birder at heart. When I'm not herping, I'm staring at birds. It helps to fill the time. So all the birds were new. It was incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah. So were you kind of going from habitat to habitat with a singular species in mind per kind of biome, so to speak? Or were there some where there was like, all right, now we have 2 or 3 species here that we're really looking for?
No, absolutely. So you kind of have your main targets, all right? For us, one of our biggest targets was breadlie, and they live in these dry washes. It's crazy how arid and dry their habitat is. You'd think you were in, southern Utah. You'd have this big rocky dry wash with maybe a small pool of water, and there's these giant red gum trees and ghost gum trees that tower up into the wash. They tap down into the water, and that's how they live throughout the year. But you'd go through here and you'd shine these trees at night, and you just look through the trees hoping to see one, because they spend, I don't want to say I know everything, but I feel like they spend a big part of their life in these trees, from juveniles eating lizards and hiding in these holes. These gum trees are, I don't want to call them rotted out, but they're hollow. They have a lot of hollow logs and hollow sections that these snakes can live in and really create the perfect micro habitat.
Yeah.
And as adults, they climb these trees and eat the birds that nest in them for the wet season.
Okay.
So that's your main spot you're looking. So meanwhile, you're in this wash, you're shining trees, you're spotting little gahyra in the trees, which are smaller. Think of like a house gecko species almost, that size and that kind of appearance. In the rock ledges on the walls, you're looking for Oyodura, which are these crazy flat crevice geckos. They look kind of like a banded gecko, but like 10 times larger and squished. Like you ran them over, and they live in these crevices. So there's a lot of bycatch for every main target you're looking for that live in the similar habitat.
Okay. Very cool. So then for those breadlie, was that primarily a target you were looking for?
It was a very high target. Yeah. For me, it was pretty high. I think for everybody on that trip, it was high. I don't think any of us had seen them in the wild. So.
Oh, not even Justin?
No, Justin had not. That was, I think, a big part of going back, not only for AMIA, but for breadlie specifically.
Oh.
We spent a good bit of time in habitat for them.
So were you really only looking for them at night, or was there any utility to going out like near sunrise to see any movement?
Unfortunately, during the day, it was unseasonably warm, quite like a lot of different areas right now in the world. And instead of being mid 90s, it was 106 to 107 during the day. So days were brutal. We were kind of doing a mix of camping and Airbnbs. So we do like 2 days in a little Airbnb, and then we'd be 2 or 3 days on the road camping in the dirt.
Okay.
So in the day, there's not much herping to be done. It's just too hot for anything. Even the monitors weren't out. We were struggling to see monitors. So it was pretty brutal. So in the day, you just find a piece of shade and hang out for as long as you could.
Yeah.
Primarily nocturnal herping was the way to go. We did a lot of road cruising and a lot of night hiking.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, that definitely makes sense, man. 107.
It was brutal.
That's nothing for you guys up there in southern Utah, but
it's no walk in the park.
No, I know. Yeah, 100. I don't think we hit 107 last year. I think the hottest day was like 105 or 106 here.
I think here in southern Utah, we still hit 113 or 114 peak during the summer, but for the most part, we're 101 to 105.
Yeah, because I remember when I shipped you that Barneck, looking at the weather, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it gets warm. It does get warm.
I was like, man, I mean, I knew it'd be hot, but my gosh, that's made me appreciate the upper 90s here. So
yeah, it certainly will.
Yeah, sheesh. So the AMIA, what was their habitat like?
It kind of surprised me. I was expecting sand hills. For the AMIA, it was very sloped and rocky. A lot of smaller rocks and a lot of brush, a lot of spinifex. Okay. If you're not familiar with spinifex, it is Australia has a lot of plants from hell, but it's one of them. It's it looks innocent enough until you touch it. It's kind of like grass, but cactus grass. It's super sharp. So it provides great protection for the geckos that live in it and small snakes and what have you. But you're definitely not pulling anything out of it. But there's a lot of spinifex and small shrubs, and where we were looking for them, it was quite sloped and rocky.
Okay.
And they blend in really well. You put them on next to a rock and they disappear.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, they literally are little alien rock geckos.
Exactly.
So, yeah. God, that's so cool. Man, finding that in the wild would be that'd be a crazy moment. Just, seeing them so often at, shows or whatnot, but then in their actual environment blending in so well. It's gotta be.
We road cruised all of ours. Unfortunately, we didn't hike any.
Okay.
We road cruised all of ours, so they've stuck out a little bit more, but they truck for little geckos, man. They haul ass across these roads, and you see this little rock running across the road, and you're like, "Oh, stop! Hold on, that was something." Yeah,
no, seriously. I mean, yeah, all the knobtail geckos, they're quick little fuckers, man.
Absolutely. We also got Nephurus levis and levissimus, and both of those were found in sandhill, like dune areas, very duney with patchy spinifex. Those are more what I would have expected to see Nephurus in, based on my very limited knowledge of geckos. I'm not a gecko guy, obviously, but I appreciate every one I see.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, just based on their physiology. AMIA have much longer limbs or larger geckos. It feels like a much more adaptive body for traversing rocks and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
A Levis is like
tanks.
little, like, you know, I don't know you compare it to, but they're like too cute
They're
to even speak
squattier.
for a while. Yeah, exactly. It's like how are you still around here? Like you're so little and chubby. But yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So the trip was up, you know, you said 12 days of actual herping, then the travel. Had you ever done similar length trips before, or is this kind of new territory? Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've done a little bit of mix of both. I've done short, like 4-day stints and 12-day stints. They both have their pros and cons.
Sure.
I've done a 10-day trip to southeastern Arizona. I've done a 12-day trips in Florida, one to central and southern, and then one to central and northern.
Okay.
And then I've done a lot of little shorter 4-5-day, you know, within a week's excursions.
Yeah. Okay.
The biggest the big thing about doing a long trip is you've got to be careful. You will burn out. If you go too hard, too fast on the first 2 or 3 days and you're road cruising till 3 a.m. and then you're waking up at 6 a.m., 6 a.m. like we did every day in Australia to beat the heat, it murders you. But you've got more time to target your species or more time to look for new species once you've got your targets. Whereas if you're doing a quick 3 or 4 day trip, you're confined. You have to find the species in that time or you're going home empty-handed. You know? Right.
Yeah, the longest I've ever done is a 5-dayer. And by that 5th day, I'm just like, I am ready to go.
It takes a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, and then, you know, I'm like anxious about all the animals back at home, like no service. I'm like, I have no idea what the hell's been going on for these last few days.
That takes a big part of the trip is trying to make sure you have someone you can trust to take care of your animals. And even then, like you said, you're anxious. When I was in Florida we did 4 days and 3 nights. And the day after I left, they hatched. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got 3 more days of knowing my scrubs are hatched. I'm not home. What am I going to do? So,
yeah, that would, I don't know if I could handle that.
It takes a lot, but on a good trip, it's worth it.
Sure.
It's very much worth it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So then how was I guess the later parts of the trip, were there more species that you guys were kind of moving throughout the region to target after you guys hit was the bread light one of the early ones?
I wouldn't say it was early. It was definitely on the front leg of the trip.
Okay.
It was before we hit Ulara. And obviously we were riding a high from that. We hit the bread light and then immediately after we got Amier. So we were like 2 big ones down. We're doing great.
So I don't think we actually touched on it. What was it an adult bread light, a young animal?
No, it was a young animal. I've never kept bread light. I would say it was probably between 1 year and 2 years. It was not a large snake.
Okay.
And it was not high. It was in the trees, like I explained. It was in those gum trees.
Yeah.
At face level, like 6 feet in the tree, and it was gorgeous. It was what you would call a hypo. Every bit of a hypo. I still haven't even edited my photos. I'm ashamed to say I haven't gone through my bread light photos yet, but I will. I'll edit them and I'll post them on my Instagram if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
But it was drop dead gorgeous, and we're mind blown about it. And we'd finished photographing it, and Justin looks in the tree right above us, and he goes, "Is that another one?" And we light it up, and it was the shed. It was that snake had crawled out of its hole, shed 10 minutes before we came across it. And it was fresh, clean paint. Couldn't have asked for a better experience.
Yeah. Wow. I guess you had that moment of like, oh my God, we found 2. And then you realized like,
we got really thought there might be another one in the tree. Like, oh shit, they're here still, you know?
Wow.
So no, that was kind of the first leg of the trip. There's a few targets we kind of missed in that area that we passed back through again, trying to hit, including death adders, which would have been really cool to get a desert death adder, but I'll just have to go back. We went out to Ulara to try and get, thorny devils was the main target down there. Thorny devils and womas. We tried in one previous area for womas and came up pretty empty handed.
Okay.
And, I think it was the first night road cruising this area. We turned one up just crossing the road. So that was a really, from what I understand, Womas are not easy to target because there's not a lot of cues that people have locked in on yet. It's one of those, either it's out on the road at night or it's not.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask about their habitat, because they're a weird snake, but
yes, they are.
I guess that might ring true with then little's known about their natural.
Yeah, so a lot of what I understand is they're very much subterranean. They live in burrows, a lot like black-headed pythons, the other Aspidites, and they just kind of come out on the crawl every once in a while. So they're very much sand dune and spinifex. It's all soft sand and spinifex grass. Wow. And you get these little rodent burrows that go into the sand, rodent or monitor burrows, and they'll go in, they'll eat the monitors underground and whatever else they might get. From what I understand, they're mostly reptilian eaters in the wild. And then they just kind of come out and go on the cruise randomly. So we just got extremely lucky and found one crossing the road.
How big was that individual?
It was an adult. I would say it was probably about 3 foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It was a full grown I wouldn't say it was the biggest individual, but I would say it's an adult.
Okay.
So
cool. So then what about the blackhead pythons?
Yeah, so it came down to the last night I think it was the last night in country. And Jordan was with us, and Jordan recommended, he goes, either we can go back an hour in this direction to look for death adders, or we can drive an hour and a half in that direction and try for black-headed pythons. And I think all of us were like blackheads, which I've kept personally. So I'm like, I got to see blackheads in the wild. It was a really good night, really stormy. It had just barely rained, a little tiny, just to get that petrichor smell, just wet the road down a little bit. And we cruised for a couple hours. Hadn't turned up a whole lot of much. We turned up a Western brown, which was really nice. That was my first live Western brown.
Nice.
Was able to photograph that. And being in two vehicles is great and not great because, one, you're not there when you spot it sometimes, but it's nice because you can cover both directions of this road. So the other vehicle had fortunately found a big 6 foot, not big, but a good 6 foot blackhead crossing the road.
Wow.
Which was, it was pretty surreal. That was one of my favorites. So
that's so cool.
We were very fortunate.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's such an iconic species that in that moment of seeing a wild one must be just ridiculous.
It's a different feeling. It's something I would encourage everybody to get out and do, whether you keep gopher snakes or corn snakes or scrubs. Go out and see different species in the wild. It gives you a whole new appreciation. Maybe it's going to be hard to see scrubs in the wild. We can't all, I love Nick's show. I love their recap, and I'm super jealous of that trip, but I understand not all of us are going to be able to go to Papua and photograph scrubs.
Sure. But
I think everybody should get out and see different species in the wild, especially if you keep them.
Yeah. That was a big part of me trying to come out here and do a lot of herping in the Southwest, is to understand more of the habitat of the rattlesnakes that I'm keeping. And you don't understand with like animals like those, like how truly cold they can.
That's what I was about to ask about. Is have you realized how cold it gets? Yeah,
I wake up in the morning and I'm like full winter coat and everything on, and I'm like, this is where the snakes are. Like they're even higher up than this. My gosh, like this is insane.
Yeah, some of those crazy Mexican species really need the cold, or at least they seem to do well in it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But yeah, this like, it even comes down to, it kind of sucks because if you were to for a banded rock rattlesnake, set up a habitat true to their habitat, it would suck.
Yeah, oh yeah, it would be awful.
Just rocks floor to ceiling.
You'd never see it. Yeah, you'd never see it. Just a pile of rocks.
There would just be like years of shit accumulating at the bottom of this pile. It's like, it would not be very fun display enclosure.
No.
But yeah, I mean, but then when you're actually there and you see one, you're like, they're so well adapted to this. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Predator stands no chance in this habitat. Like that thing's gone in a heartbeat.
Yep. So, I've had many give me a slip, just disappear, gone into the rocks. It's like, well, that was cool for a brief second.
Yeah. No, I've digging through rocks, like I'm gonna find this damn thing. So I guess any more highlights from the Australia trip that we haven't?
Those were the big highlights. I totally missed a gorgeous Mangdonite, again, Western brown. vehicle split. We went one way, they went another, and 10 seconds later they came across. So they come in a lot of different patterns and colors. So this is what you would call like the taipan morph. So it's got a really bright orange head and then a gorgeous like black body with that kind of classic taipan look to him. It's like a crisscross hatch pattern. And they were trying to call us on the radio and flash us with their lights, and we never saw them. The radio calls never came through. Totally missed that snake. So I'm super excited for Jordan got some really good photos of it. And unfortunately I did not, but I'm excited for them to see that. Every little piece of Australia was incredible. Again, I think every serious herper, and I'm not saying Australia is the place, because there's a lot of species I'd rather see in the wild. I'd rather go to Borneo, Papua, a lot of different places, but Australia is special. I almost want to say it's spiritual when you go there. It's just it's an ancient feel to it. So everything about it was incredible. Yeah,
that's amazing. So I'm going to avoid an open-ended question and go with a little bit more specific one so you can actually answer it, because otherwise it would be impossible. Your next Australia trip, where would that be in the best case scenario?
Yeah, best case scenario. That's for me, that's a pretty easy answer. Pretty cut and dry. The far northern end. Definitely targeting Oenpellis. Nice. Naturally, being a scrub guy, Oenpellis are kind of a pinnacle species for me. Absolutely. Whether we'll ever see them in the hobby, I'd love to. I don't know, but I would die to see them in the wild. That's a big thing for me. And in that same area, you're going to get saltwater crocs, tons of elapids, lots of cool species to get out there. So definitely the far north end. Yeah.
Can't argue that one too much.
No.
Yeah, man. Just, I mean, so but I think it was before the episode. I can't remember, but you've actually, when you were on the trip, you saw an Oenpelli at the museum, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, the Alice Reptiles Park, Alice Springs Reptile Park. Reptile, I think it's the Reptile Park. It's kind of a little reptile center. Maybe it's the Reptile Center. It's just a little reptile center in the middle of Alice Springs. Kind of small, hidden out of the way, but it's a really cool place. They got a lot of cool species on display. And there they did have one of the Oenpellis from Gavin.
Okay, cool.
It is one of Gavin's. Yeah, he sent it to them. So to see that species in person, it makes the hair stand on end. You know, I bet. I imagine what the equivalence would be to the Morelia people for roughies, 15, 20 years ago. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, that's actually a really good comparison. It's in the, technically they're not Somalia anymore, correct? Or
they're nyctopython.
Yeah, but they were. So
they were Somalia. Yes.
We can still.
Thanks, Justin.
Claim them. but yeah, that's actually, I haven't thought about that before, but that's a tremendous comparison of them to the rough scale pythons. It's
that holy grail for us. I mean, it was pretty cool to see.
Weren't they believed to be extinct or almost extinct at one point?
That I do not know. I know they're very obscure. They're very shy. Yeah, I want to speak out of turn on that. Their habitat's really hard to herp. Yeah, it's a lot of crazy cliffs and caves and tall trees. So it's kind of hard to get a sight of one. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that would be just to see one in person. I mean, to have one in the collection, that obviously that's quite the far cry, but would be like best case scenario. Same thing with like the Iron Range Amethystina. Have you seen that? Yes, I have. They're out of this world. Cool. Oh my God. Out of this world. Like, I think it's Darren Boswell who posts a bunch. Okay. But I mean, like they're like orange and purple. Yeah. Like, kind of take some of like the coloration of like an Aru or a Key Island and like overlay it over like a King Horneye, like a tighter King Horneye pattern. That's a really good way of explaining it. Yeah. It's just like, my gosh, those animals are so incredible. Yeah, just put hands on one in person one day would be just a dream come true. Maybe one day. Yeah, maybe one day. But I mean, not a totally unachievable goal of being able to see those in the wild either. So no, not by any means. No, it's definitely a doable thing. I think it's just a matter of getting out and doing it.
Yeah.
putting in the time, putting in the effort, and unfortunately and obviously the money.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
get out there and do it.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess as someone who's done it and obviously plans on doing it again, for anyone, and not, I won't, go into specifics of your trip, but for anyone who wants to do an Australia trip, what do you think roughly the budget should be going into it of like, I need to save up this much to be able to do everything I need to on this trip?
That's really hard to say.
Yeah.
Just because it totally depends on how many people you get to go.
Right.
Obviously, the more people you have, the easier it is to budget and split up rental car and fuel and places you're going to stay.
Sure.
For me, the tickets cost me, and I got them on sale at about $1,800 to fly to Australia.
Okay.
Now, if that's only the first trip I've ever done, I would say probably plan on anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 getting there, depending on where you want to get. And then from there, it's a matter of how you want to stay. Do you want to rough it and sleep in the dirt like we did half the time? Or do you want a really nice Airbnb with, luxury beds and hot showers?
Yeah.
Do you want to stop and eat burgers and steaks every night? Or do you want to eat a cold can of soup and fall asleep at 3 a.m. to wake up and go look for the next species?
Right.
I would say probably plan on around 3,000 or so if you want to get to Australia. And I could be totally off the mark there. That's just my very limited experience.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I think on the low end, that's kind of about what I've heard from other people as well. And then obviously, if you want to splurge on the finer things of life while you're out in the middle of nowhere looking for snakes, then that's completely on you. So,
right.
Okay. Very cool. Well, I want to pivot a little bit to some of your Florida herping. Definitely a very, obviously from a habitat perspective, extremely different from the species you're going to be targeting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, almost as different as you can get from some of the Australian stuff, some of the Southwestern stuff. So what have been the main species you've targeted throughout your trips down to Florida for herping?
I've kind of gone for everything. I tend to take a big shotgun blast approach where I do a 12-day trip and I'll spend 2 days here, jump ship, 2 days here, jump ship, 2 days here, and try to just get as much as I can in the short time I'm there.
Yeah.
Just because, especially in Florida, the habitat changes so fast. You can walk 10 feet in any one direction and be in a completely different habitat.
Yeah, sure.
It's crazy. It's so different than anything I've heard before. But I've spent a lot of time in central and northern Florida lately. Some of the big goals in the past, obviously, everybody's got to see an eastern diamondback. It's such an impressive rattlesnake, being our largest native venomous species. And they just command respect.
For sure.
That was a big target at first, and I've been lucky to see a handful of those. Some of the species I still don't have are pine snakes, indigos. Let's see what else. I really want to see a Florida worm lizard. They're so different. They're bizarre.
I don't think I know what that even is.
So do you know the Mexican worm lizard, the bipes, the little two-legged pink lizard?
I've actually.
So it's an amphisbaenid, basically. So Florida has one as well that looks somewhat similar. They're bizarre, out of this world. They have big teeth.
I held the one they have at Reptilandia.
Oh, and, cool.
I laughed I couldn't stop laughing.
They're so strange, aren't they?
Stop laughing at this, like in the best way. Like it's like a mini Alaskan bullworm from SpongeBob.
That's exactly what they are. Yeah, that's exactly what they are. So that's still a very high priority target for me.
Yeah.
Central Florida, I still need to see their sand skinks. Me and Rob Stone went just this last time, and we were able to cross off Simus, the southern hognose snake. So that was a big target for me for my last trip that I did not get. And I feel like I learned a lot on this trip, how to target pine snakes, indigos, and short-tail snakes. Unfortunately, we got a DOR short-tail. And while we were there, people were cruising them on the roads. So we were doing the right stuff in the right area at the right time.
Yeah, sure.
More time to get them.
Yeah, I want to ask you about those pine snakes. Pine snakes are a species or a species complex that I'm very into these days, especially. And they have a reputation of being very hard to find in the wild across the board. So what are you what are you looking for down there? And then what do you think the key is to actually have? So have you intentionally targeted Florida pines or?
Yeah. Florida pines are the only ones I've gone for so far. I haven't
Yeah,
done anything further west or north of that. So,
okay.
It's funny. I was talking about this with Rob quite a bit because being in southern Utah, I'm used to seeing gopher snakes everywhere.
Yeah.
The Pituophis are so common. They're just generalists. They're everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
But when you get to the East Coast and pine snake habitat, they just drop off the map.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of just the habitat they're in is hard to identify them. It's very thick scrub for the most part. There's a lot of open pine stuff too, I suppose.
Okay.
You're looking for real well-drained sandhill habitat with tortoise burrows in my mind. I know they spend a lot of time in tortoise burrows.
Okay.
And the very common way that I don't like for looking for them is road cruising. Early morning to early afternoon, you're driving those sand roads, those dirt roads in habitat, and you're just going back and forth, which can be effective, but road cruising sucks.
Yeah.
It's just not the same as hiking something up.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what you're looking for. Is I've seen photos and examples of them in real open loose leaf pine habitat, and I've also seen them in I've seen people find them in real dense undergrowth. So I think they still maintain that generalist, like they can fulfill the niche in that habitat. They're just less detectable.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So just kind of a matter of being really persistent about it. And
yeah, I think I yet to find one, but I think persistence is the key with them and targeting them during optimal season, optimal weather.
Yeah, for sure. And then would it be a similar situation then with indigos? And is the population still a concern, really?
I would say yes, just because Florida is doing what Florida is very good at and destroying habitat at an alarming rate, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They are chopping down and bulldozing over way too much. I think that personal
100%.
thoughts. But indigos, similar habitat. Indigos actually cover a lot of. They cover more than you realize. They're finding them still down in the Everglades, all the way up into far northern Florida, and they're making a comeback. They're doing a lot of work with them, from what I've seen, into reintroducing.
I feel like that's what I heard, that populations are far, far better than they used to be.
Yes, I'm hearing that more and more people are finding them because it's becoming more of a forefront issue.
Yeah, sure.
But I think they're a much colder weather species. You're going to want to look for them during the winter time or early spring. Once it starts getting too warm, from what I understand, they duck back down into the burrow.
That makes sense. They're cold weather breeders. So
one guy, interesting kind of anecdotal story is the local we were herping with last time we were down there said he cruised one randomly middle of summer. It was like 100 degrees out, crazy hot, and it was in the road. And the snake was ushered off the road, and it was cold to the touch. It was still cold,
just came up,
which means they think a tortoise pushed him out of the burrow and nudged him into the road, where he just happened to be spotted minutes later. So I think they spend a lot of time down into those burrows.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially imagine being a large-bodied, solid black snake in Florida
in
a
hot, muggy. Yeah. I don't think you're going to see them too often out there during that time.
No. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Man, seeing any indigo, but particularly like a bigger individual would be like, I mean, I don't know. I love all these rattlesnakes, but like aside from like some of the really cool montane stuff, maybe the coolest reptile to find in the US would be a large eastern indigo. It's hard to say.
Put that
so many amazing.
I would put it up there.
Yeah. I mean, I would say maybe like a Kentucky pine snake might be on that same level for me.
Yeah.
But that would be, seeing a big indigo in the wild would be so incredible.
It would be something.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You know, I've done very little herping in Florida. The only thing that I really targeted ever with a group of friends one time and actually found was a big American croc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to do, is, you know, spend a little time out there, find some, you know, target, whether it be what pines or indigos or anything like that. It's just like to be able to see some of that stuff would be amazing. And also to herp in an entirely different terrain that I'm particularly used to. So
it's a humbling experience the first time you do it.
Yeah.
You think you have it down. You think I'm a pretty good herper. I think I know what I'm doing. You do all the research, all the planning, and then you get into the zone where you've never been before, and it's full of plants you don't know and vines and thorns. And I'm used to cacti and agaves, and now I'm going through this tick infested forest with vines and crazy stinging hornets that you flip a log looking for coral and get 8 freaking hornet stings, and it's just a different world, So
yeah,
it's a humbling experience, but it's exciting to herp something new.
yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of herping something new, do you have anything on the horizon that you're trying to plan as far as a new spot goes?
Yeah, actually. So despite being in Utah, I have not spent much time at all in Eastern Utah. So
Okay.
Eastern Utah is kind of at my forefront for this year, for the early summer. I want to make a trip back into Arizona for Hogtober, quote unquote, and try and get my Mexican hogs.
Mm.
And then I actually want to make a New Mexico trip to get clobs out there and ornatus as well, because ornatus I do not have yet. And a West Texas trip is probably out of the picture for this year.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, man, New Mexico is absolutely incredible down south. What are the targets that you're looking for out in East Utah?
So the painted desert glossy snake, I still don't have. I don't have viridis, the prairie rattlesnake.
Okay.
I still don't have a live abyssus, the Grand Canyon rattlesnake.
Okay.
I do have concolor. I also have the Mesa Verde night snake already. And then Emery. Is it Emery's rat snake? Emery?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Emery I still need as well.
Okay. Well, that's a decent amount of stuff you can,
Trust me. And blackneck garters, of course. There's a couple of amphibian species as well I need to cross off out there. There's a lot out there. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So how about internationally? Is there like another spot that you want to hit internationally, or it's like if I next time I leave the country, this is where I want to go?
Everything.
Maybe aside from Australia.
Me and my buddy have been playing with a Thailand trip. Just planning and, like you said before, funds, making it work.
Yeah.
Australia is never out of question.
Sure.
I will make it back again. I'd love to do a Borneo trip. I'd love Africa. Africa is very high on my list. I need to see a cobra species in the wild. Everywhere. The problem is the list never gets shorter. It always gets longer.
I know. No,
every year you're like, oh, good, I crossed that area off. Now here's 4 more.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, I feel like I don't think too much about it because I'm like, I'm gonna be upset with how many places I can't go. Like,
Yeah, there's always those places you're like, I can't go there, but I want to.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, man, I really appreciate your time tonight. I always love doing the herping talk too, all the scrub talk as well. 2 of my favorite topics, so can keep kind of going on forever. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you have on the horizon or new projects you're looking to get into? Anything that's kind of like keeping you excited these days? Obviously, aside from scrub babies.
Scrub babies are going to keep me going. I've got my Japanese rat snakes, which I got a dead clutch from. Shortly after I got them, I paired them up. So just pumping her with some food again and going to try for those again. I'm pretty comfortable. I'll be able to get some Japanese rats before too long.
Okay.
I've got my Chinese king rats that I'm growing up. Going to hold back a few of those and want to kind of expand that project a little bit.
Cool.
I'd love to get into Japanese rat snakes, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I know I've seen a few out there and I want to pull the trigger. I really like those.
Yeah, I feel like the king rats are a rabbit hole I could fall pretty far down. I've never kept a king rat before, but I know I like them considering.
If you like scrubs, you'll like king rats. They fit the bill. Big angry snakes.
Yeah, I feel like they're almost kind of the like old world Spilotes equivalent. Not quite
absolutely.
As arboreal, but
I never connected that, but absolutely they fit that Spilotes feel. Yeah.
Yeah, because those, I absolutely am obsessed with my Spilotes, and just
You have
from
some very nice ones, by the way.
well, thank you. But just, yeah, from the physicality, their size, their confidence. I mean, I'm not sure how arboreal the king rats are, but probably not quite as arboreal as the
No, they're pretty
Spirillum.
terrestrial. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that would be like the primary difference. But as far as the range, the variability throughout, and then their physical appearance, I feel like, or like, their structure, I feel like that's as close of a comparison as you can.
Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, and with how obsessive I am over my spilotes, I bet that king rats would be no different. So I don't know. I need a new house before I can do that, because I don't have space. I can't put any more.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
So on the Japanese rats, how are you cycling them? Because I've heard they got to get really cold. Is that true?
I couldn't tell you, to be totally
Okay.
honest. I didn't cool mine down. I cooled them with the room, so they hit 67, maybe 66 at the very coldest, and they were on the very bottom of the caging.
Okay.
And I got duds, and I feel like it's because, one, I didn't provide her with a hot spot to help, incubate those eggs internally, and I didn't provide enough food, I think. I'm willing to bet, and I could be very wrong, I don't know much of anything about breeding colubrids, but I'm willing to bet they can be cycled without dropping them that cold.
Okay.
That's my thought. Whether I'll be, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Hey, fair enough. It's all trial and error at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's another species. That means some of those more northern Asian species like Russian rats and Korean rats, they're so cool. Oh my gosh.
I love the Asian stuff. I really do. I wish I had a whole room dedicated to them.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think I could legitimately have, like, right now, fund space not an issue, amass like a 200 species colubrid collection, and still have more that I want.
Easily.
Yeah. Like, and still be like, oh, but there's all this over here. I mean, I have very few Asian species to begin with, and there's so many more that I would absolutely love to keep. I mean, I used to have 100-flower rat snakes, and I
was getting ready to say Mullendorf are high on my list. I'd love those.
Somebody who was not me let the female escape and could never be found.
No.
And then I ended up selling my male later on to either fund scrubs or rattlesnakes, and I regret that one dearly, even though it's like, what's one male going to do for you? But I love 100-flower rats, the Mullendorf. They're
cool
so
snakes.
Incredible. Oh my gosh. Just, I mean, no other snake looks like that. Like, that's not the appearance unique. That occurs in snakes.
To me, the fact that they come from caves, they look like that, and they come from caves is the crazy thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you compare them to the other beauty snakes, they really stand on their own.
They do.
Their head structure, that super triangular, bulky head, is not anything alike to a blue beauty or a cave racer or any. All of those, they're all very structurally similar snakes. Obviously blue beauties get much larger, but like proportionally, they're very similar. And then these 100-flower rats, which I'm not super up to date on the taxonomy, whether or not they're still considered Orthriophis or Elaphia, whatever it may be. Yeah, but like their physiology is just a bit different than the rest of them, but makes them super interesting. So, but yeah, I mean, shoot, those, all the mandarins, all the bamboo rats, like, there's too damn many.
There really is.
And then I'm not sure I'll ever get back into them again, but I guess technically Tyus is how you're supposed to say it. We all say Ptyus.
I say Ptyus too. Yeah.
Yeah. They're so cool. But
that's a whole genus in itself, man. There's a lot of cool species in that.
I currently have a Carinata. She's her name is Helen Keller. She's blind in both eyes.
Oh no.
Sweetheart of a snake. But yeah, I used to have Nigra marginata as well.
Did you really?
Yeah, man. They were amazing. Unfortunately I lost the male. He like very quickly got like an infected hemipene, and very quickly went downhill. And I ended up trading the female to a friend who had other individuals in the group. But I mean, talk about a beautiful snake. I mean,
they're incredible.
Neon medium green and black racing stripes and a kind of yellowish head. Just
that the fit body of a racer on that
Mhm.
color platform
Yeah.
it's just a combo, man.
The only reason I don't know if I'll get back into that genus is just from what I understand from people who've bred them, the babies are just like the hardest thing to get feeding.
Really,
And there's especially Carinata, like there's no trick.
frog legs and yeah.
It's just eventually they just decide they eat something, and there's not like this item does it. It's just like, I don't know. They might eat, they might not. It's like, oh, okay.
That's crazy.
I don't know
That
if I have the
sucks.
patience for that.
I
don't know.
kept tricolor hognose for years, and I eventually sold out of the project because I was so sick and tired of it. No matter what the scent you put on the pinky, they wouldn't touch it, and you'd have to. I call it the button. You'd just push the pinky right under that lip, and then they force feed, and
Yeah.
you force feed them for 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and then one day they're like, "Oh, that's food. I'll just keep eating now."
Yeah.
And they just turn on, and I hated it. I didn't have the time or the patience to hand feed each and every baby tricolor until months later it decided it was hungry.
Yeah. I have a trio of them that I'm raising up right now.
Okay.
And they're super cool. They're from
They're extremely cool snakes.
yeah, they were produced by Doug Dury, and he's working with all like the really cool like double, triple banded, aberrant.
Yeah.
wavy,
Yeah, I know the ones you're talking about.
So they're so cool. And but yeah, that might hopefully, I mean, they all did really well on unscented pinkies from a pretty small size. So
Oh, that's good.
hopefully there's some epigenetic stuff going on there where they're a good feeder. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. We'll see when the time comes. But yeah, they're such cool snakes. They're
My fingers are crossed for you, man. I do miss them at times, but I'm like, I didn't have the time for that.
yeah, no, I feel that. So yeah, I like my. That's why I love the Pituophis. It's like they're born. You put a fuzzy in the tub.
They're
it's
machines.
gone, and you're like, all right, it's eating.
They'll eat out of the egg, man. They're crazy.
Yeah, that's why I'm so fond of those snakes. So
I don't blame you.
yeah, man, they're so badass. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. It's definitely getting late for both of us.
It is.
but yeah, I mean, once again, man, thank you for coming on tonight. Congratulations again on the scrubs.
Thank you.
Those are going to be fantastic. They're going to be.
I can't wait to see a couple sheds in.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun process. For anyone who wants to keep up with everything you're doing, keep track of these babies, where can you be found on social media and whatnot?
Yeah, both Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, just under Aspen Mahan. I pretty much post every one of my Instagram posts on Facebook. It's a lot of herping, some fishing. Every once in a while, I'll throw one of my captives up there. I should probably get better about posting updates on all that stuff.
Yeah,
I forget that people want to see the captive stuff too. On Instagram, you can find me at Aspen Mahan Wildlife Photography.
Okay.
It's a mouthful. Maybe I'll change it. I don't know.
Very cool. Awesome, man. Well, and I guess another thing to ask, because you'll most likely get something. Should people message you about a waiting list or anything for scrubs, or should they wait and see what you do with them?
Let's wait and see.
Okay.
Yeah, let's wait and see. Chances are for the first year, they're probably, because a couple of people have messaged me and said, "Hey, what are you doing with those?"
Yeah.
I said, I'm holding on to them for now. So yeah, let's wait and see. And if a couple get released on the MORPH market, may the best man win, I guess.
Hey,
I don't know. I'll let you know.
All right.
I'll make it available when I decide to let a few go.
Perfect. Well, once again, man, thank you so much for your time tonight. This was really an awesome episode. But if you want to stick around, I'll close the show out. But yeah, thank you so much. This is a great conversation.
Thanks again.
All righty. All right, everybody. Thank you for checking out this episode. If you liked it, once again, please subscribe here on the YouTube channel. We are on audio as well, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from. You can find this show right here. I am on Instagram at scrubshepherd, Stephen Kush, Facebook, Stephen Kush, or at Kush Reptile on YouTube as well. I drop a new video every single Friday on that channel, and Kush Reptile on MORPH Market as well. Should have a couple of snakes that I'm going to be putting up on there in the next couple of weeks or so. And of course, here every single Wednesday on the Trap Talk Reptile Network. So with all that said, thank you guys for tuning in this evening. I'll catch you all back here for a new episode next week. Good night.